Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
So, sorry, I only made 2 copies there, but it's the 5 articles that we have left. So Article 12, resignation and probation. This is our original, or the same proposal, 2 weeks notice of resignation, and then we're keeping our proposal of 12 months probation time.
Okay, so you not made any changes on that same proposal?
Right.
Okay.
So Article 17, work week and overtime, and I hand wrote some changes in based on what the officers here have told me, based on how things have worked in practice. So for C, our proposal is in lieu of overtime pay, an employee may elect to accumulate compensatory time up to a maximum of 24 hours, which may be replenished. Such hours are not limited to Code 9004. Both the accumulation of comp time and the use of comp time shall be at the reasonable discretion of the chief of police and/or his designee. So this is just what they were telling me about how, I guess it's, was done in the past, right, Alex? And he has and how it still works today, so. So basically, you're allowed a maximum of 24, and then
Essentially, just increasing it, the amount of hours, that's what we're requesting. Still status quo, the process.
Okay.
And then for D, all bargaining unit members may use comp time up to a maximum of 8 hours per day. I think that's what you all had the last time. Said you shall be at the reasonable discretion of the chief of police or his designee based upon the reasonable necessity to maintain the efficient operations of the school district.
They don't have to provide any advance notice?
Well, I put that in E.
Okay.
So for E, all bargaining unit members shall meet with their direct supervisor to schedule when any unused comp time will be utilized. All comp time utilization must be approved by the chief or his designee. If a bargaining unit member fails to schedule use of his or her earned comp time prior to August 15th of each year, the chief or his designee will schedule when the comp time will be used. And I changed that to August 15th to match subsection F. Because if they don't if circumstances don't allow them to use it by August 15th of the year, then they're paid out, so. And then I added, all requests for the use of earned comp time shall be granted if a member requests to use the comp time at least 7 calendar days in advance, and I changed it to 7 because they all told me that that's what it currently is, and that's what the form reflects when they fill it out to use their comp time. So if less than 7 calendar days notice is provided, the granting of the request shall be at the discretion of the chief. This request provision shall not apply to major holidays on days when training already has been scheduled to take place. Upon the chief's reasonable determination that the district or school will suffer undue operational hardship, or upon the chief's determination that the district is or will be in a declared state of emergency, but the use of comp time is not prohibited on major holidays or days surrounding school breaks.
Okay, so hold on. So you have right above at the beginning of that sentence, it says this request shall not apply to major holidays, but then at the end you say it's not prohibited on major holidays. So which is it?
Well, I wanted the notice provision to not apply for major holidays, but I still want them to be able to use it on holidays if, there's manpower to allow them to do that.
But that's not what this says. This says that the request provision shall not apply to major holidays. So this is, all of it is the request provision. So
Well, if you
you're
want to
just saying
say
they don't have to
notice,
notice them on a holiday, but they can take it on a holiday.
I don't want the 14 days, if you want to change the word to notice, but if I just don't want the 7 days, to apply, but they can be able to use it if they can find coverage.
Okay.
Because otherwise, it's mandatory for it to be granted if they provide the required notice.
Well, that's not what it says above, though. It's that the use of comp time is at the reasonable discretion of the chief of police. You have that in C. So it's either at his discretion or it's not. So,
Well, reasonable would be, unless there was issues with manpower, things like that.
but you just used the word mandatory. I'm finding a lot of inconsistencies here, but I think I get your proposal. It's just not clear on paper. Okay.
Well, I mean, reasonable discretion, that was, I think you guys had arbitrary and capricious, but unless, there was an issue with someone replacing them or undue operational hardship, then that would be, his reasonable discretion to deny it if one of these issues applied.
Major holidays doesn't apply to us because we're off during major holidays anyway.
Yeah, so I really don't think that'll be an issue. 17.3, 72 hours notice, that's the same. I added your change in the last sentence. 17.5, we changed on-call status paid to $100 instead of $200 because I believe that there are people who are forced to be on call during certain times of the month. I think that's mainly the detectives.
And possibly canine guys.
17.10, that's our same proposal. That's based on the general order that they all discussed, I think, at the beginning of this year. 17.12, so I don't know if this is, how this would work on your guys' end, but this is, I said the district shall bill this charge to the school responsible for scheduling in or coordinating the outside detail or extra duty work, because that seemed to be the issue, that if there is an issue with, insufficient notice for the scheduled work, that it's on the school. And 17.15 is mainly what you all proposed for the Joint Study Committee. I just wanted to be sure that it's not included in 2 of the open articles during reopeners.
Okay.
So Article 20, for 20.1, we wanted to include the general order for the dual career ladder, incorporated as an appendix to the agreement. .2 is the same. 20.3, we kept our proposal with the firearm trainer, DT trainer, and the 3.5 hours of pay per week at 1.5 times pay for the canine.
So this is the same proposal we got on 20.3, the same one we continually get from you? Okay.
Yes. 20.5, that's what we agreed on, 2.5 and 3.5. 20.8, we took out the 2 different pay options based on the issues that you guys explained. So 20.10 is just the change in language from Glades to West. So 20.11, instead of 5 years continuous law enforcement service with the district, we changed that to 4. No record of discipline in the employee's personnel file related to any serious job-related incidents. We just changed that to suspension, and we changed 5 years to 4 years to match the above section.
So if the, let me stop you for a second. So if the officer had gotten a written reprimand for some kind of unlawful use of force, you're okay with that?
Well, a written reprimand by definition, I think, is for a less serious infraction usually, so I don't think you
Well, there's
would usually see a
well,
written
progressive
reprimand.
discipline has to be followed. We've kept the 5 steps in progressive discipline. So written reprimand, you have to follow those steps according to your team. So written reprimand, I believe, is like the 3rd step. So it could be for a more serious infraction, especially if it went from nothing to that step. But you only want suspension. So if they've been fired and come back. Okay, never mind.
Progressive discipline is, it doesn't mean that if you, punch someone in the face, you get a written reprimand.
You're not getting a written reprimand for that. You can skip steps also. You don't do progressive discipline when you're getting ready to fire somebody either. If it was something egregious,
They're well aware of
Yeah.
that. They're just,
Okay.
So next page, the district will administer the promotional exam and/or hire an independent contractor to administer the examination. The district will announce its method of exam administration, internal or through independent contractor, and the announcement of both the testing location and the date of the examination at least 45 days prior to the testing date. So this is language that we have in other contracts. The examination will consist of job-related questions and exercises based on written job analysis to test each applicant's skill, knowledge, and the ability to successfully perform the position of sergeant. The examinations will be designed to ensure that content is job-related, equitable, and non-discriminatory. The examination content shall be kept confidential at all times and not shared with any applicants. So, and then for the board, for each round of interviews conducted, the oral interview panel will be comprised of 2 sworn department command officers selected by the chief, 2 rank and file officers who are randomly selected by the district by lottery, who are not in consideration for the assignment, and 1 non-district law enforcement person selected by the other 4 panel members. So this we thought was a fair way to make it more balanced and actually have members of their peers on the panel. And this is similar to the career service board process.
Well, I get that, and a career service board is for promotions, and you've listed promotional and positions in here. This is a special duty assignment, it says that right at the beginning, so I think it's giving even officers more confusion that this is a promotion when it's not, so.
It's always been a promotional
It's
exam.
not a promotion. A promotion is an increase in your, and it's permanent, so it's, or as permanent as they can be here. So going to a lieutenant is a promotion. This is a special duty assignment. It says it in the contract.
It also says promotional exam.
It says promotional exam in one spot, but it's in the classification of special duty assignment if you look at the heading. So we'll take this under advisement. So anything else?
Not for that article. And then 28 is the same, I just kept working day definition.
Well, I appreciate the effort you put into this. So we've been hearing some rumors, and I just discounted them as rumors because, you hear rumors around the district all the time. But the rumor I'm hearing is that there is at least one member sitting across the table from me who is telling membership that we are bargaining to impasse, that is the intent of the PBA, is to bargain to impasse. Second,
That is not our
hold
intent.
Hold on. We've also been told that there is this idea that there's going to be a PBSO takeover. The board has not indicated that at the dais. They have not asked for bids. They have not asked for any information on that. We have not been given any information that PBSO takeover is imminent or even on the table. So what I would like to do is to find out from your individual officers, because Ms. Mendoza, I don't think you had anything to do with this, but I would like to ask the members of your team, has anybody on that side, have you told the members that you're bargaining to impasse?
No.
No.
Yeah,
So you haven't told your members you're bargaining to impasse?
we just answered that question. The answer was no.
Okay, I just want it clear for the record.
Well,
We hope
very
to
clear.
get, reasonable responses from you all. I would love to walk out of here with the contract done.
It's always an option, correct? I mean, there's if we're not bargaining in good faith and it doesn't go that way and it's,
Well, there's a difference between bargaining and reaching impasse and bargaining to impasse.
I've come
Bargaining-
in
Nobody's
here
bargaining to
with
impasse.
new proposals almost
Every
every
week.
time. If I was not bargaining in good faith, then that would not be happening.
All I know is we have been told that there is at least one member of your team who has told officers that they're bargaining to impasse. I
That
just
makes
wanted it
sense.
clear for the
that's
record.
absolutely not true.
Okay, so now that I've heard from all 3 members, they're saying it's not true. I'm clear with that.
If that was our intent, we wouldn't be sitting
Sitting
here
If that
today.
was our intent, I wouldn't spend hours on these every week.
No,
so.
Ms. Mendoza, I don't think you have anything to do with that. I honestly don't, but I think what I'm hearing is that, and I'm glad to hear these officers tell me that they are not telling the members of the bargaining unit that.
Tell that individual to come see me,
Yeah.
please.
Okay?
Really?
I mean, after this, I think this is like our last
Is
proposal.
this your last, best, and final? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, because, we come in here every week. This is not just what they want. This is feedback from the members. I spoke to all the members of the K-9. This is what the members want. And every week we come in here trying to work with you all, but I think that this is our last.
This is
Well,
meeting
if
number
you're
9.
saying last, best, and final, I want you to understand the ramifications of that. that you are declaring impasse if we don't get here. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, if you have
You-
something more reasonable for 20.11, but as far as probation, 12 months is pretty standard. Comp time, I think we're just asking for it to be raised by a day. The 7-day notice thing is what they do right now as part of their practice.
Well, I've heard your proposal, so we'll pass out ours. We have another one for you.
Can we get responses on ours first? And then before we get a second?
Well, I think this is our response to your proposal.
You didn't even know our proposal till.
Well, I understand that, but you're going to see
It wasn't a
where,
response to our proposal, this was already pre-planned before you even got our proposal.
correct, Officer Lopez. See, what we do on our team is
But
when we
that's not
come.
negotiation,
Hold
if
on.
you're not even addressing our proposal.
Officer Lopez, if you would let me speak, sir. What we do is, based upon your responses to our proposals last time, we went back to the chief that same afternoon, as soon as we finished with you. We went over to the school police, we sat down with the chief and walked through all of your proposals, and we've made movement again. That's what you're going to see here. What you just gave me, some of it I think we're close, some of it we're not close. So I just need, because just as you're saying, you're hearing from your members, this is what they want, I'm hearing from the chief, this is what he wants. So the first in Article 12, obviously, we're not coming to an agreement on that. You want 12 months, we want status quo on the number of months.
Right.
Okay, so work week and overtime. We've kept that properly documented because we feel that that's necessary for some of the things that we've seen. We have upped our comp time offer to the 24 hours.
Can I just
However,
ask you, is there an issue with people properly documenting their overtime now?
there has been, yes.
So they just don't submit the proper form?
They're
or-
not filled out in advance, they're not filled out properly, they're filled out a week or two late. So yeah, there have been problems with overtime. So in 17.1C, we've agreed to make it 24 hours. We took out recurring, but it's an annual maximum, because what you're talking about of having them be able to replenish it over and over again, it allows a lot more than 24 hours. It's in the neighborhood of about 90 hours of comp time that you could accrue throughout the year. And so we know that there have been instances where people have been paid out more comp time than the contract allows. So we're going to hold it firm to what the contract language says. And the contract language is pretty clear on the 16 hours, that they can't have the most you could get paid out, even with this idea that you have of replenishing and recurring, the most you could get paid out is at 16, and we have officers submitting slips for saying, I have 90 hours or whatever of comp time, and expecting to getting paid out for that. So we want to make sure that it's clear, this is an annual cap, it's 24 hours.
How does it work now? Do they let you
It's-
replenish it?
That's in contradiction to the way it's in the contract, the way we've been doing it now, and the way it was meant to be in the contract. And I have the original proposal when that was taken out, and the word annual should have been taken out, but I guess there was an oversight, they didn't take it out. And I have it right here.
All right, well, I'm just going to
Somebody's been cashing in 90 hours at the end of the year?
No, that's just, they wouldn't pay it out, they wouldn't pay that person anyway. So,
Obviously, Mr. Lopez has his opinion about that. I've heard from command staff that there's been some issues with people
And they
at the
paid
end
it.
of the year we just had the end of the year count, obviously, August 15th, and people submitting for a lot more comp time than they're allowed to accrue. So that's why our proposal is the 24 hours.
But do they let you
Annual
replenish it
maximum.
right now?
Yes.
Yes.
They do.
Been like that for
Yes.
years of replenishing. So this is saying we could take 24 hours and that's it.
Correct. That's our
another
proposal.
copy, so.
We've agreed
I
to,
just need to clarify something. So you're saying the department paid this person out for 90 hours of comp time?
I'm not saying whether they
Okay,
paid them
that's
out
what
or
I-
not.
That's what I said.
I'm
I didn't
saying it
think
was proposed, that the person brought it forward.
Well, I'm sure
I am-
people make mistakes, you know? They made a mistake. They put in for more than what they were allowed to, but they didn't get paid out, so it's not even an issue.
All right, can I continue?
Yes?
Thank you. All right, so this is our proposal. It's an annual 24 hours of comp time. We agree that the hours would not be limited to 90,004. And we added that they may not be earned for work performed under a lease agreement for the reasons we've mentioned before. we're clear on the arbitrary and capricious and what that means, and it won't be denied on that basis. That they get a maximum of 8 hours per day during the calendar year that they can use it. Obviously, they can use less than that, but a maximum of 8. The employees have to make the written request at least 1 week prior to the date of the intended use. Again, it won't be denied for arbitrary and capricious reasons. We again have that they're going to meet with their supervisors quarterly to schedule that time. But obviously, we know that you may schedule comp time use, and that's why we have the 2 separate things, where they have to give them in advance. Because there's 2 reasons for that. One is that they may have scheduled comp time use and something occurs where we need them physically here, and that get withdrawn. There are other times where maybe the officer has an emergency and they need to use comp time. Maybe they have a sick child or have a emergency doctor's appointment. We would like them to be able to do that, with 1 week's notice. If, let's say, I know I have to take my child for an orthodontia appointment and suddenly the person who would usually take them can't take them, we want to have that kind of flexibility based upon the 1 week's prior notice, but that would be a different from what they had scheduled to use it for when they met with their supervisor.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the comp time, when you limit it to 8 hours per work week, you pretty much knock off the whole summer when the district goes to 10-hour work days, correct?
I'm sure we could work something out with that, because that wasn't the intent, as long as you're not in training. I think that's not the intent. The intent is the 8-hour workdays, but if you had, I'm sure we could probably add language in there that if it's a 10-hour workday, that they could take up to 10, because the intent was to let you have the full day off.
Okay, that's what that,
Because it's a little easier sometimes to get coverage for a full day than a partial day.
I find this confusing, the 1 week versus quarter, because what's the point of meeting quarterly if they just have to give a request 1 week before?
Because they're going to meet with them quarterly, my intent is that I'm going to use my comp time, in May. I'm going to use my comp time in May. But something occurs, I have a death in the family, I need to travel because, my child has a problem at college, they have to move out of the dorm early because of COVID or whatever. I want officers to be able to say, look, with a week's notice, I can't do it that week in May, I need to do it here because I have another emergency. That's the intent.
Okay.
Because otherwise, they would lock it in quarterly, and then it'd be, well, too bad, so sad. We don't want to do that to our officers. We want to have a little flexibility. Again, we left the language in with limitations for when it could be used, so that we're not in periods where we have a lot of call-outs, because it's not just people scheduling leaves, but it's people who call out the day before a holiday. We have it at the school sites, we have it everywhere. The rest of the proposals, 17.3 remain the same. In 1710, we did add the last sentence here because we took what you said about wanting those for the extracurricular school functions, that we would go first within their school, then sector, then zone, then non-school-based assignments, then district-wide. But we had to add this language because of some incidents that happened this week. In cases where the number and/or timing of call-outs for an extracurricular school function tax the capacity of the system, the district reserves the right to offer the extra duty work on a district-wide basis as the initial step. The reason that came into play this week is we've had to have some shifts in athletics. So a game that was supposed to be played Friday night got played Thursday night. There were people who were supposed to cover that game, said I can't do a Thursday night. We had people call out, said I'm not coming in, I'm not feeling well, whatever, I have an emergency. And we don't have time necessarily to then go through that chain of command. They would just send out a whole blast. We need someone to cover this football game on this night. So that's why that language is there. It's not something that they would use on a frequent basis, but if it's something where we have an excessive number of call-outs, we have no way of covering that through this system, we don't have time because the number of call-outs and the timing of the call-outs. We had to do that this week.
Do you guys have an issue with the after zone, it says non-school-based assignments?
Yes.
But we don't have that in ours, so I
Right.
don't
Well,
think that matches the general order.
It doesn't matter.
If you want, I'm not gonna, that's not a hill that I'm gonna defend. I mean, if you want
Sector,
that out,
zone,
then,
non-school.
so those,
No.
then
No,
the.
you
No.
all know more than me. with
No,
how
that's
that
very,
works.
very unfair, because what's going to happen, I have an opening, I send it to people in my sector, they say no, I send it to the zone, and my zone, they say no. and then I have to find out people who work in non-school-based assignments, essentially in non-patrol functions, are going to get it before officers who are working in the other zones throughout the department. That's very unfair. That seems like it's going into people who are not performing their duties as school resource officers are going to get the opportunity before the officers performing their duties in the school which they were hired from. So I have an issue with that.
Let me ask you this, so the K-9 officers, they would just be in the district-wide pool then?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. We were just trying to open it up to more people, particularly those who, like the K-9 officers or some of these other officers who aren't necessarily school-based.
They would be included, I apologize about interrupting you, that school-based people are included in the district-wide.
So your K-9 officers are school-based?
No, what I'm saying, you're stating here,
Right,
it's
school
sector
sector,
zone, it's sector zone then department, so they're gonna get it,
Before the department.
they're gonna get it at the same time as everybody else. They're gonna
Well,
get the same opportunity as
It's going to
every,
go to the school first, then it's going to your sector, then it's to your zone, then to these.
The
And there aren't
department.
that many of them that are off, that are non-school-based assignments. But we can take those out if you don't
Yes,
want to offer
because-
that opportunity to them first.
what I'm saying,
that's
it's,
fine.
they are already included
They're
in the
already included.
district-wide.
K-9 is.
Yeah,
Correct.
everybody is.
I understand that. I understand
I
that. We
don't-
wanted to give them a little extra, extra opportunity to do extracurricular, but if you don't want, that's fine. We can take them out and it'll be just district.
Yes. And they want-
Would that be an issue, I'm interrupting you, but for 17.12, that was the insufficient notice of cancellation for outside detail or extra duty work. Would that be procedurally, how would that work if you guys could charge the school? Is that something you guys could do, or is that?
I mean, we can't really, I don't know that we have a way of billing the schools. It's possible, but we feel like there's an internal procedure now that doesn't need to be contractual. That there's a way for them to handle it now. We spoke at length about it last time, is that the officer has that happen, they talk to their supervisor. The supervisor then talks to the regional superintendent, because if the school was then paid for that lease and already got the money, they should pay the officer the full freight, not 2 hours, but whatever they were scheduled to work.
But if the school,
That's what we're looking at.
but if the school gave back the money and just forgot to notify the officer,
I don't know that that happens, quite honestly.
I'm
That-
telling you that happens. I know for a fact it happens.
I'm sure you do.
Doesn't happen often, but it
I
happens.
think it does happen.
The school forgets to tell the officer that detail was canceled, that the lease was canceled and the money was returned. So now, the burden should fall on the school to pay that officer. It happens, and most of the time, the officer gets paid, and that's pretty much the process we have now, but we just want to legitimize it and put it in the contract.
Understood.
Actually, just back to 17.10 in regards to the additional sentences you put where in regards to in cases where the number and/or timing of call-outs, et cetera, that would be in exigent circumstances.
Correct.
If that could stipulate so, because it doesn't say that. I'm just dotting on my
For
i's and crossing
17.10.
t's.
1710.
In 1710.
That's technically what we meant, but rather than just saying exigent circumstances, we were giving you specifics. If you want it more general, we can do that.
No, just adding those 3 words at the end would make it basically, it's not going to happen on a whim. That's what I'm trying to get away from.
Understood. 17.14 is that joint study committee. And going into 20,
And do you guys, are you intending that to be one of the reopeners?
I wouldn't know if that's going to be reopened or not. It's just
Like-
going to depend upon what the committee comes up with. If the committee comes up with something that would be something they want, that both parties want to bring to the table, then both parties say, hey, we want to bring this to the table. But I don't know that necessarily has to be, if it has to be a definitive reopener. Because if both parties come up, because I've heard from your team that they could just do it as a GO, that they'd be fine with that, or they want, but then maybe they want it in the contract. So that would be what this committee establishes, is it something that needs to be in the contract, or can it be a GO?
Okay.
So that, I wouldn't put it just as a specific reopener. It'd be at the discretion of the committee. In Article 20, I noticed that the, like, part of that wasn't underlined, issued as a general order 26.4, we have that. I'm not sure makes sense to put it as an appendix, because if we're going to just list it as an appendix, it's no longer a GO, right? Because then the GO can't change. So if we're going to put it in the contract, then we put it in the contract. If we're going to leave it as a GO, we have to leave it as a GO. I don't think you can't have it both ways. Because the GO is at the discretion of the chief of police to change that. I know that the practice has been that hasn't been changed in a number of years. But if you want it in the contract, it should be in the contract. If it's a GO, then it's not an appendix. It's just listed, here's the GO.
I'm not opposed to keeping it a GO. We could just add language saying that if it's subject to change, there could be,
You could
notice
request impact
beforehand.
bargaining if you wanted to, because it is referenced here. but-
Right.
Okay.
And sometimes we have like you guys give us notice if you're intending to change it, and then we have impact bargaining. And
So on 20.3, we did not change anything from our prior proposal. We're still for the K-9 handlers, an hour and a half per day, and that's 7 days a week at the rate of $15 per hour. One thing we have changed, as you see in 20.4, we are moving to $37 per hour for non-contract days. We can agree to move that up to additional dollars per hour. I didn't see whether you had come off that proposal or not, I don't recall.
I did, I changed it back to 35, but
And then the salary adjustments, the 2.5 and 3.5. Obviously, the 20.10, I think we've reached an agreement on that, just calling it the West. And then in 2011, you'll see we've made some changes here. What we're trying to do is open up more opportunities to your bargaining unit, and that's why we're making these changes, because the changes as they are now, with the education requirements and all of that, it's less than 5% of your unit that's even eligible. We want to open it up so more people are eligible to have this opportunity for this special assignment. So we've added, as we added before, that they could have 5 years, where at least 2 years are within the district, or 5 years of continuous law enforcement service within the district. Because of your concerns, we added that this would be as of January 1, 2026, the requirement will revert to 5 years of continuous law enforcement service with the district. So we'll take that 2 and 5 out after 5 years. So we'll sunset that piece. Again, we're sticking with the no formal discipline. I think we've come to agreement on progressive discipline. There are certain steps in there that, if somebody feels that they've unjustly been disciplined, they can always grieve it. So we feel that the no formal discipline, and we have Article 29 listed there, so it's very clear as to what formal discipline applies. Again, that we kept the line supervision, that they'll complete that within 12 months of receiving the assignment, because quite honestly, from what I'm understanding in your line of work, that usually officers don't get that opportunity to have a line supervision course until they're being promoted into a supervisory role. It's not something, and particularly in COVID, it's a little hard to get those supervisory courses. We took out the word promotional because, again, if you look at the title 20.11, Sergeant Special Duty Assignment. Our proposal, your proposal, all say the same thing. It's a special duty assignment. We have the testing of 14 calendar days. We feel 45 is just too much. I mean, if they're going to be tested, I liked your language about what the test would entail, that we could add that the questions would involve certain things. I think that went without saying, but if you feel more comfortable having that in the contract, that's fine. We just feel that 14 days provides the officer with enough time to study for an exam, particularly when it's being tested on what they're currently doing. So, like I said, we're just trying to provide more opportunities for our officers. We left the,
14 days is very
14
short.
days, isn't it?
sorry, what was the question?
I said 14 days, if this is going to be a promotional exam of any substance and
Again,
involve
it's not a
materials.
promotional exam. It's a special duty assignment.
I'm saying,
think it is a
or a
promotional
promotional exam, if there is an examination, whatever term you want to use, that's given, and it's going to cover more than department orders, there's no way in God's name that someone's going to be prepared if they have to know state statutes, criminal procedure law, Supreme Court cases, all different stuff like that. If that's going to be as professional an exam that me and the chief had to take, 14 days is nowhere near,
I could speak to that. So the chief is of the mindset that if you're out on a campus as a sworn officer, the body of work that you're supposed to know about anyway is already included in that. So you're not supposed to be reading for the first time the statutes. You're supposed to already know the statutes. You're supposed to be referring to them regularly. So it's not something that he thinks that you need to see for the first time 45 days before an exam. I think to the other point, though, the material that would make you a better supervisor would be taught after the assignment is given to you. That's why we're making a commitment to send you to the supervisor's course post-assignment. That's all I have.
so that means they're going to be performing their duties as a supervisor without any formal training going to the school?
I didn't say that. I said they'll be sent to training after.
Yeah, will they be sent for training before they put the stripes on and perform their duties, or after?
I think that it would depend on when the school is being offered.
So therefore, we will have people who've never done the job as a supervisor and performing their duties without any formal training.
Well, I mean, if it's preferable, we would then wait until a course is available, and at that point, we could look into making those assignments.
And also, when you indicated about the state statute and such, that means then therefore they're not going to ask any officer here, for example, any questions pertaining to DUI or DWI, whatever they call it here. You know, if it's going to be actual based on, so it's going to be battery and assault and that kind of stuff, and not something out of left field. That's what I was getting at.
The intent is for the job that you have, not a job in some other agency, the job that you have here.
What sort of books and stuff were issued in 2016 when this was given the last time around? Just,
I can answer that. They used the policy and procedures from Miami-Dade County. They used materials from state statute, Florida state statute, and they used a private book that was Survivors for Law Enforcement, something like that. The book that talks about the magic chair and stuff like that. I don't remember the name of the book.
You're referring to a process that took place in 2016.
Correct, that was the last time we had a sergeant's exam in this department.
Okay, so I can't speak to that.
Well, that's why I'm answering it. They asked what type of materials. I'm telling you the type of materials that we
seems
I
use.
think the question, I think the more
lot.
appropriate
Through
question
in
would be
2
what
weeks.
materials are we going to offer for the next special assignment exam?
doesn't sound like much then.
Well, it's just a broad, the span is so large that can be taken out of anywhere. In other words, the Florida state statutes, we deal with Florida state statutes. Are they going to pertain to the ones that only deal with the schools?
The intent is that they're going to be, the exam, having the chief prepare the exam means that it's specifically tailored to the job that you do and the job of the sergeant, what they need to know. Not what you would need to know if you were working in Louisiana or Texas or New York. It's what do you need to know to be a supervisor here in Palm Beach County Schools. That's the intent.
45 days is only like about 6 weeks, so I don't really think that's too long of a notice period.
We feel that the 45 days hinders us in the ability to react and be more agile in our staffing.
Also, if the concern is the availability of a first-line supervisor's course, if we have to wait 45 days, that course may fill up, and then we don't have an opportunity to have a process ahead of the course. So it defeats what you're telling us you'd like to have happen.
Well, actually, history here was that a class was given prior to the current administration coming. They gave a promotional a class that was equivalent to this. I was a former Major B.K. Davis gave the class.
And yeah, exactly, you can do it with the same thing, they have trainer classes.
So if you look at it, the way this is written, this pretty much qualifies 80% of the department right now.
You said it does?
It qualifies 80% of the department right now.
Where are you grabbing the 80%? Is that a statistic that you know for a fact to be true,
Well,
or is it something that you're just
not-
extrapolating from your own personal information?
80% of the department pretty much has prior law enforcement, right? So,
Well, no. They have to have 5 years of continuous law enforcement, at least 2 with the district, so.
okay, we
are you
have pretty much 80% that are over 2 years. What number are you?
1186.
And so what would you say, how many people would have under 2 years in this
Probably
department now?
13 or 12,
100?
1260 and down.
Maybe less than 80? So that would probably be a very large number would qualify.
So,
And it
so
seems like
your
the intent-
objection is that we're allowing too many of your bargaining unit members to have the opportunity to have a sergeant special duty assignment? Is that the argument you're making?
No, you are incorrect.
Well, it includes new people.
It includes a
So
lot,
people-
it just seems like the standards are being lowered
Very much.
very much to allow, I don't even want to say it, but
No, go ahead. I'm not quite sure I'm getting what you're trying to say, Officer Lopez.
Special
you're
treatment.
pretty much tailoring this exam to fit the people that you want to already do the job. That's what I'm saying.
There are current, if this was it, which the current people who are operating in such a capacity right now wouldn't even be able to get it. That's, we want to be able to have people here, when they're hired, to look at people who are working in a supervisory sergeant's rank with the respect that they went through a formalized process and of something of substance. This seems to be lowering the standards of people. I know we've been hiring new people to the police department. This police department is something that's totally different than traditional police department. So when we have people who have had very little experience here in actually doing the police work and doing the job, some of them don't even know how to do a report, but yet they're going to be able to have to provide instruction and supervision to someone else. So it's just a bad situation in total.
And this opens up the opportunity of, okay, you're bumping out a lot of the older guys, not older, but just guys that have been here 6, 7, 8 years.
You're still eligible to apply.
Well,
I mean, I
okay.
think I'm really confused by.
I need to finish, and maybe it'll
Okay,
clarify
sure.
what, a person that's been here 8 years, they might have a written reprimand or a written warning in their file, which now disqualifies them from taking this exam, where you can hire somebody off the street, 6 months of probation, and they qualify for the exam. That's what I mean.
Okay, so just to be clear, the
And they
only.
could have, those people that they hire off the street, they could have a history of discipline in their department, which wouldn't affect them taking the exam here.
So let's just be clear. The only word we added was formal and put the Article 29. Currently, they can have no record of discipline in the employee's personnel file relating to any, and it had serious job-related incidents within the previous 5 years. We have access, if you're coming from another law enforcement agency, we can look at your personnel file.
But it
This
wouldn't-
doesn't say employee's district personnel file. It says currently employee's personnel file. So we're not going to put people in sergeant's positions who've had serious discipline in another agency, because it wouldn't be allowed under this terms of this contract. Furthermore, I mean, it doesn't make sense what you're telling me too, is that the people who are already in the jobs wouldn't be qualified. Well, if they're already in the jobs, they do meet these qualifications.
No, they don't. Detective supervisors, some of them that are
Right,
doing,
but-
do
okay,
not.
so that's your ULP, Kevin, that's not
They're
this.
Supervisors, that's why I use
This
the
is
word
the special
supervisor.
sergeant's special duty assignment. So people who are put in those sergeant special duty assignment roles is who we're talking about here.
Well, they-
We're not talking about anybody else because this contract has zero in here about what it takes and what's required to be a detective. It's only the sergeants that have that provision of what it takes to get that special duty assignment.
So just to clarify where it's the Article 29 statement, so someone who wants to be a supervisor that got written up less than 5 years ago, say 4 years and 9 months ago, is going to be prohibited from from qualifying for the exam then?
That's what it says now, though. That's what I'm having trouble understanding you, because in your proposal and in the current language of the
No,
contract.
I'm just clarifying
We only
because,
had suspension.
huh? Yes,
No,
we
no,
had
that's your
suspension.
proposal, but what I'm saying is, sorry about your proposal, but in the current contract in your proposals prior to this one, you left that language the same. You left it as status quo. And the language said, the current language says, no record of discipline in the employee's personnel file relating to any serious job-related incident within the previous 5 years. That's what the requirement is right now.
Right, and my
We
question
are
was,
trying to narrow that so you understand that it's formal discipline, because we heard from your team, that you were worried about verbal coaching and all that. This is formal discipline.
that was my follow-up, but I was bringing that to your attention. And secondly, what you just answered is if it has to do with one discretion, or is it had gone through the process? Maybe I'm not making myself clear, but you just answered my question.
If you go into Article 29, any of the discipline listed there would be formal discipline.
Yes.
Okay.
From reading this, I would think that it would be only their district record, but you were saying you want that to apply to all their
It
previous
says
law
employees'
enforcement.
personnel file, it doesn't say employees' district personnel file. I'll talk to the chief, but I would assume that if somebody had been working in another agency and we found out that they had done something that warranted them to be suspended, I don't think we'd want them in a leadership role here. At least until they had proven themselves, correct, AC?
I believe that would be correct.
Okay.
And the other thing is, Alex, you said that someone that just got hired 6 months ago could qualify.
Off probation 6 months, is what I said.
No, you didn't say that. You just said got hired 6 months ago.
6 months off.
I think
Oh,
that's the
6 months off
concern,
probation.
that probation's 18 months, and then under
And
this,
then
you
I'd just
only
like to
need
take
2
issue with
continuous years with the
your
district.
assumption that officers that have been here 10 or 15 years write better reports than officers that have been here.
I can't hear you, sir.
I said I'm going to take issue with your contention that officers that are here for longer terms write better reports than officers that are here for shorter terms. I don't think there's a consistent pattern there. I've seen really good report writing by new officers and senior officers. I've seen really poor report writing by senior officers as well as new officers. So to draw a standard line across the board, I don't think that's fair to any of the officers.
I've never mentioned anything about report writing, reports and anything like that, so I don't know what you're implying.
Just before you said
I think Kevin maybe mentioned report writing, but I think it's just the general notion of you have more
Yeah.
experience with, the
Okay,
district
maybe it
field.
was Kevin. I apologize for that.
All right.
All right, so we have, going further in, the minimum of the 12 months of receiving the assignment, they would get the line supervision. Again, with COVID, with other issues within the career of police officers throughout the country, there are issues with making sure that we get those courses in the time that they're needed. And I think we went through the rest of that already. So moving into Article 28, the definitions, we've pretty much made all of your changes with the exception of 10B. We just took out the word weekday. That doesn't really apply because, this is for a non-contract day. We have non-contract days on Saturdays. So to say it's a weekday may lead officers to think that a weekday is only Monday through Friday. A weekday is actually Saturday to Sunday, but we have non-contract days because I know that some of your officers work non-contract days for special things like, I don't know that they still do it. The flea market at Lake Worth was a non-contract day, is my understanding. So that occurred on a Saturday. So to put weekday here, I think is a little squirrely for some people. But the rest of it were all language that you had requested for definitions.
So you wanted to keep X out the working day definition?
Well, you had crossed that out.
I know, and then last time I said that was a mistake.
Well, that was the proposal we got from you, so,
And And then I said it was an accident last time, so,
Well, we'll have to talk about it, because once you crossed it out, we kind of like that, so
okay, so that's your
we'll have to
proposal
talk
now.
about that. And this proposal we have, it is a package deal. So some of those things that we've provided that you wanted, the 24 hours of comp time, the not limiting it to 90/04, or some other changes that we've made, this is a package deal. So if you don't, it's not where you can pick and choose off of this. These are all one package.
Okay, and this is your last offer?
No, ma'am, I'm not at last best final. We're going to continue to bargain in good faith. If you want to declare impasse, that is entirely up to PBA. You know, if you want to say this is your last best final offer, we're still required under 447 to continue bargaining through the impasse process.
Well, I know we're not moving on 12. We'll have to talk about, you're saying this is a package deal. I mean, 17 seemed better to us, but I know we'll have to talk more about
Package
Article
deal to
20,
me means
so.
take it or leave it. It doesn't mean actual and true negotiations that we can't sit here and
No,
discuss our differences. That's what it's telling me in my many years of doing this.
Officer O'Sullivan, this is standard labor negotiations. We
Yeah,
can
and
put
I've been doing
together
it
things as a
with
package.
much longer,
Obviously,
not
we're gonna
disrespectful,
continue
longer
to
than
talk
you,
to
and I'm
you.
willing to sit here and go through and
Okay, then we
discuss
can go
each
through
issue
them.
with you to be able to come to an agreement, so our members see that, as opposed to be handing this and saying it's a package deal. My members, that means take it or leave it. That's what it means.
Well, then you don't quite understand labor law, but that's okay.
I've been doing
'cause
it probably
that's not-
longer than you.
that's
I'm not a lawyer. But I'm willing to sit here and go with our package and your package, each one, to see if we can be reasonable people and come to an agreement. Are you willing to do that?
You
Officer
might be allowed to
O'Sullivan,
say package deal, but I just think it kind
Correct.
of narrows,
Yeah.
you know, our
do you
being
want a
able to
response, or do
openly-
you want to keep talking on that side of the table? Because we can do that. I'm fine with listening. I want to hear everything you have to say, so we can say.
Negotiations is that we submitted this, you submitted this. We did not say this is a package deal.
I understand that, but why?
But you
here's
said that.
why- Okay.
There's a great
Officer
difference.
O'Sullivan, let me, I'll speak really slowly. So let me just, because I want to make sure that you
That's
understand.
condescending. What do you,
That is ridiculous.
I need for you to understand. I just feel like we're talking over each other and you're not
you
hearing
know,
me.
that was totally wrong.
That's one of the problems that we have
That's
from
the
the beginning
problem
here.
coming here. And I am here under the fair labor standard equity principle. I take offense to that.
5 minutes, all right.
No, it's not.
The
We always talk
sarcasm,
into,
it makes
our
things
membership
hard.
say you talk to us condescending and it's stopping. I'm not taking it.
I didn't take that to be condescending.
Oh,
She
yes, I
said she
did.
was going to slow down and just talk clearly. I don't, because everybody's getting misunderstood as to what's being said. I think she just wanted to reset and start talking slowly again so that everybody was on the same page.
I
So-
did not take it that way.
Well, I'm sorry that you took it the wrong way, Officer Sullivan. I meant it the way AC Weiner said. It seems like this is getting escalating for no reason. We said it's a package deal for this reason. We gave some things on this deal that we would not have given otherwise. It's trade-off. So that's part of negotiations. We give you something, you give us something in return. You give us something, we give you something in return. That's why we called it a package, because we gave things in one article for things we wanted in others. That's why we're calling it a package. It's not saying take it or leave it. This is negotiations. We want to hear what you have to say on our proposals. You asked, you wanted to hear what we had to say on your proposals. I gave you our responses because we already had an idea of where you were going with that. The fact that you want to put in the sergeant's exam, I even said, I really like the idea of talking about what the questions were going to be. If you recall, I said that. So we're trying to get to an agreement here, but I feel a lot of hostility coming from that side of the table. And
We
so I'm
feel
just
it-
trying to
We
slow
failed
it
for
down.
years weekly.
Well, we
it's
don't
just- I
meet
think it's just
weekly,
more
Officer
frustration.
O'Sullivan, so.
Our membership is saying, I don't know how you could sit there and be spoken to that way.
And you want to know something? I hear it from your membership as well, coming to this side of the table, telling me, I don't know how you sit there every time listening to that. And I say, look, they're your leadership.
How do our members have access to the Director of Labor Relations? I'd love
Because
to
I
know that.
work in this building,
So-
and they
so
work
it's
our
people-
board member
it's-
meetings, and they say hi to me.
Saying what
So-
they're saying, we were bargaining for impasse.
All right, this is
Yeah,
pointless.
people who don't come, aren't doing their jobs like we are.
Workers' comp proposal as well, I don't think I mentioned that, so.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
The workers' comp article.
Is that, are you taking that off the table, or is that
No,
still?
I said we're keeping it, so.
Okay.
I didn't mention
Because
that.
as I told you, you know, our risk managers, the person who runs our risk management department, said that basically what that does is kind of limits for the officer should the work comp statutes change. We're relying, work comp is a completely different area of law. We feel that we don't need to have it in the contract. We've seen it in other contracts where we put in either reiterate exactly what it says in a policy or exactly what it says in the law, and then the law or the policy changes and it causes problems. So I feel like it's setting an expectation for your members that we will not necessarily be able to meet based upon what, because if work comp law changes from different from what yours in your collective bargaining agreement, our work comp carriers are going to follow the law. They're not going to follow your statutes, and it just sets everybody up with your members up with a false expectation, and it sets our team up for having grievances filed because we're following the law.
Well, this just mentions the statute number like a lot of the other articles, and then 31.2 is something we have in a lot of other articles in other places, so it just allows them to supplement their workers' comp with sick leave. It's their own time, and 31.3 again is in the CTA agreement, so.
We'll take it back to our risk management people, but they had told us flat out no before, so we'll talk to them again. Are there any other articles that you propose that are still on the table other than the work comp?
No, that's it. It's in this packet.
Okay. Did you have any other questions on our proposals?
Nope.
Any comments or things you want to talk about?
No, I think we just need to talk about it, especially if it's a package deal, so.
Well, again, it's negotiations, so if there are things you like in the package and don't like, you can always come back and talk to us about it. All right?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks.